feeling you might not have done this before, not in this way. And of course, we'd like to hear, not from all of you, but we have a good record of what took place today, good data to work with, some of your ideas, and what were the pros and what were the cons. So first of all, what was it like working in a group, trying to think, really push yourselves a little bit about this fusion model? Here, Rabbi Siegel has
I have a mic back here, so if you, Ray, if you'd like to
describe
comment.
the experience of just sort of working together as a group in this way.
Well, believe it or not, I don't know anybody at my table.
Can you hold
Oh,
that?
sorry. This is the first time I met anybody at this table, so to me this has been a very interesting experience. And all of us are very passionate about what we think and feel about our temple. So everybody has a lot to say. And I think this is amazing what we're doing today, because for the first time ever, I see all of us mixed. Usually the seating is how you're sitting with your friends in your group, in your havra or whatever. This is so important what we're doing, because so many people have so much to say. And that's what I learned at my table today.
Thank you. This was not scripted, by the way, but it's usually what happens. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And it sounds like you had a great discussion.
They might all hate. Whoever, but oh my God.
But you're all at the same table still. What else? Yes. And I'm going to give you
We used our youth as the foundation of the discussion, correct? And we asked her, because she's very passionate about Camp Ramah, and we asked her what she loves about Camp Ramah and how we could bring that passion to the congregation for the younger people and, well, everybody really, because everybody likes kids stuff.
And maybe, had you not been working in this kind of group, the idea of drawing upon a camping experience wouldn't have come up. So you've used your collective intelligence as another focal point.
Others. Raise your hand, they'd be more than happy to pass the mic.
Can you hear me? Okay. We discovered that we maybe kind of did this a little bit incorrectly. We also focused on the youth at our table, and we were focusing on the youth groups and youth lounge and how can we strengthen our youth groups. And by working with the 7th grader at our table, we discovered that maybe some of the what?
Now, I just wanted to say thank you for a 7th grader who's willing to be here this morning. Thank you.
It helps that I know. So we discovered that maybe some of the ideas that we as adults had as far as social action and how to get our youth involved were maybe we had an incorrect idea as to what youth would actually be interested in doing and what the youth would want to do. So that was very helpful, getting some feedback there and understanding what the youth actually want out of a youth group and youth social action. But then when it came to like actual planning and innovating, I think we might have done some things a little bit not the best, but we definitely came up with some ideas and cleared up some things, so that was helpful.
Okay, so I'm glad that you made a mistake, because if you don't, then you'll just keep repeating what hasn't been working. And by having somebody, a stakeholder, I'm sorry, what is your name? Just so I can embarrass you a little bit more, that's just my job right now. Sarah? So by having somebody who's got a direct stake, who can tell you, like, don't plan for me. I have ideas. I know you won't do all of them, but listen to me a little bit. So I think this is wonderful. You got to make mistakes, and you have to talk to the people who have direct ownership. Thank you. We'll take one more process question, and then we want to hear your ideas.
One of the things that I think we all experienced at this table was that we started off from this kind of almost dry place, and all of a sudden it got pretty juicy. I mean, we got some ideas going, and our particular focus was on preschool. And we got to thinking about how preschool, that we have more space than
Now,
just
before we get there, and I think we're going to segue to preschool.
Okay.
What was the change that you detected when suddenly it went from dry to juicy? I'm curious about.
I think that there was almost a sense of permission to go creative. I mean, it was more of an idea that, okay, really, we can trust each other and say things that we wouldn't ordinarily say in a meeting, right?
Interesting.
That was.
Okay, but now, while you have the mic, let's segue to some of the ideas. So you got really juiced up about this preschool. Would you read your challenge, please, so that everybody can hear it? And just talk a little bit about the general concept and the pros and the cons.
Using these IKEA principles, what would a preschool look like? How could we design it to attract new potential members or deepen the involvement of existing members? As you design the preschool, think about using our building as a base. And it was interesting because that last phrase, using the building as a base, we also got the idea that for young kids, they all have houses, they all have homes, and that this might be a base, but there are delivery systems that for Jewish education that could take place at the home base, which is part of this kilah.
Right.
So there were a whole bunch of ideas.
Let me see if I got that right. So in other words, the congregation could be both the launching pad and a home base, but don't forget that kids actually live in homes.
Yes.
And if there are zip codes and pockets of kids living in certain areas, maybe that's another route that can be mutually reinforcing.
And it was very useful to know that the idea that most of them have screens that are interactive at home, so Jewish education could be.
Great.
We also talked about things like converting Bible stories to superheroes for the young kids, so that they don't have to think about stories of anguished adults not killing their child, things like that. So we also thought about, in terms of investment for the congregation, that we do make preschool and something we don't charge for at the front end, but we create a scholarship program for kids, for parents whose kids have gone through preschool, for the next generation of kids coming through preschool, so that there's a way of paying it forward and not costing anything for young parents.
Okay.
So those are some of the.
Now, how's that for just a few minutes? Thank you. Who would like to volunteer to talk about what they worked on, pros and cons, general concept? Well,
We have somebody
no,
right
you're,
here.
no, but you're, no. What's your name? Beverly. So since you pointed to somebody else, I'm going to go to you first, and then we'll go to the person.
Okay,
She's used to seeing everybody.
so, all right, so our challenge had to do with, I'll tell you exactly what our challenge was. It with adult ed. It said how can you develop what options can you develop to make adult education more inclusive and attractive? And we talked about it with a lot of different topics and a lot of different ways, because we were thinking about adult ed and, and how to identify the types of things that our constituencies might be interested in. And one of the things that Rabbi Siegel said was, okay, see what people are doing. What do people like to do? So one of our final things, because we went through a lot of things that were, but one of the final things that we talked about was we said, okay, You know, what do people like to do? They like to go to the movies. You know, we see that people of all ages like to go to the movies. And we talk just in some very general terms, how we would possibly use the attraction of movies to be able to package to package a series or package a program or package, conversations as starters for conversations. One of the things that we talked about was a re-release of Entebbe, which is clearly a movie that would be of interest, from a lot of points of view, and that would cover a lot of ages as well. So we were beginning to talk about how to possibly package that with other things to be able to develop a program that would be interesting and not necessarily all at the building, because we might be able to go out to the movie to do, together to do, go out to eat to discuss it or that type of thing.
So interesting that you should mention movies. There's an organization called Encore.org. It's not a Jewish organization, but they're pairing up 55 plus adults with younger children, with adolescents, and they're watching movies together. And they're watching them, these are generally kids who are more at risk, but it's a great way to talk about mentoring without talking about mentoring. Right? And the movies that they select involve an older, and I will include myself in that category. I'm not being offensive, I hope, to anybody, but 55 and up. Right? In the movies, there's one adult character, not a parent, but another adult, who plays some sort of seminal role in the life of a child who is in some ways not being fully parented. And this is a national program, and if you go to Encore.org and look up, I think it's their Gen to Gen initiative, you might be able to take that ideas and pair it in some ways with working with youth. Now, where was the table?
Here was the youth back here.
Oh.
And by the way, one movie which is probably on their list is, no, this is another one, Bad Grandpa. That's one you might want to stay away from mentoring. Okay. But here is a youth.
Hello.
Stand up.
So, our challenge today was using the IKEA design principles. What could make our facility more attractive for health and nutrition and cooking classes? And our kitchen was the base. So we thought of a way to have Jewish culture around the world through food, as we're Jewish, so we love food. And it's meant to help get more congregants from the young ages and all around, because we don't have that many of the 20s and 30s between bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah and families. So what we're trying to do is, once or twice a month, depending, we're going to have dinner or some sort of occasion, whether in the synagogue or renting a facility, and we're going to have food that's related to a region that's around the world. So for example, we could have Southern European for one time. So we may have some Italian food, depending on how the Italian Jews, and there may not be many of those, but or I know that from the Spanish Inquisition, a lot of people's ancestors are from Spain and Portugal. So how they used to prepare their foods in Southern Europe, so maybe have some of those using our research. So yeah, that's just...
So, your name is?
Cole.
Sorry, see, I am getting old. So Cole, let me tell you, and all the members of your table, what a brilliant idea this is. When you look at television shows that are hot, right? A lot of shows around cooking and eating. Number two, it's a fun way to bring people together across the generations who also need to eat. So people can come in, and by the way, if you buy an Instant Pot, if you haven't used them yet,
Instant what?
Instant Pot, not that kind.
Instant pot?
Rabbi Siegel.
No, you're...
Instant Pot is a pressure cooker.
Oh.
It is very popular among the 30-something crowd. I haven't cooked my whole life until about 6 months ago, and I started with an Instant Pot pressure cooker. And the beauty of it is you get fresh food in about 25 to 30 minutes. So it's convenient. Look it up on Amazon, not any of the sites that Rabbi Siegel sends to you.
No. Being from Seattle,
Yeah, that's why I
this might be
wanted
a new item in our cannabis.
that's why I wanted to be clear. But what a great idea. It's culture, it's history, and David Mamet wrote a little book, not very popular or well-known, called Passover. And in it, he described, I thought it was the most moving story of a grandmother and a granddaughter talking about different recipes around charoset. And it involved sort of transmitting the old recipe, and the granddaughter wanted to put in a couple of new things. And it wasn't really about the charoset only, it was that intergenerational cooking piece of fusing old and new, learning about culture, right, through the best way, because very often what we eat is our history. It's a reflection of where we were. Brilliant. Well done.
Cole
And
has
then-
one very quick
yeah.
comment.
So we also had an idea relating to the food and culture to have kind of like a cook-off. And my idea was to call it Beat Bubby Flay or Beat Bubba Flay. Yeah, like Bobby Flay.
By the way, on that same note, if I could just throw this out very quickly, when I was the interim rabbi in San Antonio, and if those who are from Texas or are familiar with Texas know that Texas is big for barbecue. Not only big for barbecue, they have barbecue competitions that go all year round, and people who take it very seriously. And so when our congregation was looking for a fundraiser, somebody came up with the idea, what about a kosher barbecue competition? And we were the first Texas kosher barbecue competition. We had, among other things, we went out, HEB, which is the big, those from Texas, it's the Publix of Texas, donated 10,000 pounds of kosher brisket. And it became so big now, this is the 4th year now that they've done, they make over $100,000 a year on the competition. On not just the competition, they have 20 or 30 people competing all over the state. But it's ideas like this, and it's all kosher. We have to caution, the rabbi goes out at night. When they first come in, they come in a couple days early with their cookers. And they're all kosher. We have the whatchamacallit, the
Blowtorch?
The blowtorch. I'm out there with a blowtorch, and it's crazy watching it. And the craziest part is most of these people are non-Jews who are doing this. They come in there and they explain the rules. And anyway, it's ideas like that that make it.
And listen to this, the finance piece. Very often, people, big stores will sponsor an event because they know that whatever money they're putting out up front, they're going to get back 3, 4, 5 times fold. So if you invite sponsorship, so it's very tasteful, right, and not sort of like plastered all over, and you want to pick sponsors with whose values you're aligned, it doesn't mean that it's completely, a non-budget item for the congregation. But it can be a fundraiser, you can make it back, you invite the corporate community in, just like you hear nice little subtle ads from NPR, it's not in your face all the time, and it's just a win-win. So,
Just in one moment, the 7th graders are going to return to their to their class. And again, I want to
Can we
be...
have a round of applause for that? This is why I don't worry about the Jewish future as much, because when you bring the right people into the room, you get a lot of creativity. So it kind of feels to me like we may be at a good stopping point unless anybody has any other, yes?
Yeah.
We wanted to share our tables.
No, please, that's right.
Can we do that? I mean,
Well, since-
we're just gonna jump on it real quick, because we had a couple real important.
Can you stand up so that...
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just came from the gym, I didn't realize, I looked so horrible. But, I always look wonderful, oh, thanks. You said to all your board members, though. So we had ideas similar to Jewish food around the world. We thought maybe not every week, but quarterly Jewish food cooking lessons. Like as you approach the Seder, how to make charoset, how to make something, knedels, how to make stuff traditionally for the highs, or like a challah bake-off or something like that would be a good idea. One idea we don't think will cost any money, and we could do after services on a Friday night, have a board game night. Invite young families to stay here after service, play board games and interact with each other. You don't have to write anything down, there's no screens or anything. Maybe have some snacks, and we don't have to have a full dinner. We also talked about, I don't know, another table talked about a preschool, having a Jewish school. There's a lot involved with that. I know we have a preschool in Sunday school right now because I dropped my daughter there, so I hope she's still there. You didn't get much for it. Thank you.
What was your challenge, by the way?
I'm not sure. Somehow we got to get more people in.
They got a bed, go to the gym, come to school.
Money was our challenge, I think. And then lastly, one of the things we didn't talk much about it, but we threw around at the end of more keeping people involved in the show. Is that, again, after services on a Friday night, have a cocktail hour. Have people stick around. We don't have to serve full meals all the time. Just have people stick around. I know it's all food and booze and Instant Pots with me. But, and lastly, one of the things we touched on briefly is that it seems like every event to walk through the door, there's an additional charge, and we should be having a lot of these events without the charges. I mean, I don't know how you do it. Do we get people to sponsor the event? Do we have money in the budget? It's a board meeting issue, but a lot of people are turned off by the fact that to go eat pizza in the sukkah, they got to shell out another $10, or to come here for another dinner, they got to shell out another $10 a head. Even though it's only $25 a family, some people are turned off by that, and we discussed that at our table.
So I'm going to pick up on two things quickly, and then we'll wrap it up. I think people want to, Avi wants to say something at the end. The board game idea, whenever it occurs, I wouldn't minimize that, because what a lot of people are feeling today is there's too much of this and not enough of that. And board games are getting a little bit more popular, because there's a little bit of a backlash right now. Parenting today, grandparenting today, it's tough to get people's eyeballs unglued from some kind of screen. And it's going to get worse as virtual reality glasses, which are now coming down in price, right, will be so immersive that people are going to forget what it means to make eye contact with another human being. So I think thinking along those lines is something very important, and I like that a lot. Here's my concluding words to you. So if I were to rate you on your innovation scale, I would say that I'd give you a solid 8, and that's only after a very short time this morning. And I think that I want to encourage you to be more self-confident and not be afraid to try, to dream. It's okay to make a mistake and to learn from whatever mistake you made, but if you don't keep doing this work, then everything that's locked up inside of you, that's so rich and can reach so many lives and change families and have an impact on the community, will continue to be a secret when it should be a treasure for everyone. So I want to especially thank Sharon and the committee. I wouldn't be here without Rabbi Siegel, who is continuously a source and a generator of creativity and gives permission for people to dream wherever he goes. And I'd just like to thank you all for your deep participation this morning. It was really just a lot of fun.
Since everybody did not get a chance to every table, we have a lot of good ideas here, and handing a paper like this may be a little difficult to read, since especially people who are organizing it for the board, so we can get more information. Perhaps if at every table, if somebody could volunteer to maybe type up a quick summary and send it into Colby, into Mitch, just so that we have all of these important, helpful information for you going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. If one person from each table could just be responsible to grab the challenge and the worksheet, that would be great. But I want to, first off, I want to thank Sharon Cross and our Scholar Residence Committee and Rabbi Siegel for putting this weekend together and bringing Rabbi Herring to us. Not a better time for us to be having these conversations. So I want to thank Sharon, Rabbi Siegel, the committee, and Rabbi Herring. I want to thank our brotherhood and sisterhood for not only putting on this great weekend, but for everything that Brotherhood and Sisterhood does for our congregation every day, both behind the scenes and out front. Without these two wings of our synagogue would not fly, and they really are the wings that make it happen. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today, as well as being here all weekend long, for listening to the great word and wise words of Rabbi Herring, and being here today to contribute. Because I think the greatest takeaway from today is that everyone had an opportunity to participate in the committee process, and it is the committee process that makes our congregation not only innovative, but successful, and will carry us on for the next 40 years. And that's really where we're at, is how do we translate what we've done and who we are as a community to the next generation, to get Congregation Kol Ami to be here in a vibrant way for the next 40 years. And that takes something that we all did very tacitly, but it's very important, that I hope will carry on beyond today and beyond the social hall, and that is trust in the committee process. Not one table here did I hear worry about what the other tables were talking about, or picking apart what the other tables were doing. Everyone was actively engaged in the committee work that they were engaged in. And that is critical, because if we spend more time focusing on worrying about what everyone else is doing, and not focusing on the task at hand, nothing gets done. So I want to thank you all for your time and your energy and your effort and your commitment, not only to Congregation Kol Ami, but to the North Tampa Jewish community, to helping us get to where we want to be tomorrow and the weeks and months ahead. Shavua Tov, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
signed Victor also. It's not even his name.
But the nice thing is, I say, just so you know how, basically that we have people Oh yeah, like what, you've been sleeping together for 25 years having children? Like what? Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's my sister, Hi. I mean, Lauren's going back there. Have some workshop for really? Well, Louis said. Oh, it's great. It's on HBO. Right. What is this? She said people were like, Louis said it's she was hard. Although it wasn't an open mic.
Wait a minute. Jerry, make sure there's no.
Similar to Telegram, everyone subscribes to it, you get everyone links together on a super
They were in pop class, they were in all sorts of things. Better get up there, just talk to TJ. Done. And he's like, oh, so you're a young guy. So he like let her up. He's like, no, but I think he's obviously that's Johnson. What do you do that? But he's like, oh, give me 5 minutes. He's like, you got a stick? He's like, yeah, I got a stick. I'll give you 5 minutes. He said, you do 10 minutes? He's like, yeah, I'll get 5 minutes.
Jay Miller.
No, yeah, Louis did it, but his sound on his camera is broken, and he did it standing behind a pole. So you see her arms flailing around. There's no table. Which would be great for the next time. She's talking about what addition takes to be a husband. But really, like, two of the women that were there, afterwards. Right. This incredible. You want to continue? Let me give you your Facebook info. They like all friendly. Well, now she's so like, she'll come to different groups. She's going to another one in Melbourne. She's doing one. She's touring. That's amazing. Seagulls, I think, is in Melbourne. It's on Monday. Monday.
That was a great game.
We were just talking about
I got up to go run some errands around.
yeah, the Jewish community. Absolutely. Here, they get a fundraiser. Well, you know what I said? I said, well, who knows how to turn this? It's like.